Where is God in life's disappointments? What happens to your faith when nothing makes sense and it all hurts? After a painful struggle with infertility, Daniel Doss and his wife Emily began the arduous process of adoption. Thankfully, he comes to us not from that emotional roller coaster, Daniel, but from Tennessee to tell his story. Was that a big decision to look at adoption after the dream couldn't be?
For sure. It's always a struggle walking through that. You're mourning not being able to have children. And my wife and I mourned at different rates. And the same thing with adoption. Her heart opened to adoption before mine did. And you have a lot of different options when you're going through infertility, from in vitro to adoption to just saying we're not going to have children. And so we felt like God was leading us towards adoption. And once I felt a clear yes, let's go forward, we moved forward together. And she was very patient and gracious as we walked through that journey.
College sweethearts, this had always been the dream to have a family. But I'm thankful it's not always this painful for those who choose to adopt. Give us a capsule of that journey, Daniel.
You know, I hear stories that are even more so, but basically we went through several failed adoptions. We felt a little baby boy kick in a birth mother's womb down in Indianapolis, and we had a shower for a baby girl, and that fell through, and multiple other stories like that occurred before we finally made it to our first son.
Okay, well, the most heart-ripping one.
Yeah. It was right
involved
before.
The best Christmas ever to that point.
For sure, and that's often what I'll say. That's was the best Christmas ever. We had our baby boy in a hotel room down in Georgia, and we couldn't leave Georgia, the state. Certain things had to clear first, and we couldn't enter our state because things had to clear legally. So we had to wait, and while we waited, we got a phone call from the birth mother just saying she wanted her baby back. And so legally, we could have fought that in court, but we could not, years from then, look at our baby boy and look him in the eye and tell him what we knew. And so God walked us through that awful moment there, and in a hotel room in Georgia, so far from family. And some family came to visit us during that time, but the worst Christmas day ever, or the best Christmas day ever, turned out to be the worst New Year's Day ever when we took him to a lawyer's office in Atlanta, dropped him off, and drove home, still childless. And that was definitely the darkest point of our lives.
You know, I asked Emily if that huge, heart-ripping denial and disappointment changed her mind, at least briefly, about going further with adoption. She said no. The experience for a whole week with that baby boy of being mom just enhanced her desire to keep going. You did mourn for a couple of months. Then what happened?
Well, we stopped the journey for a couple months and said we're not going to adopt, just to mourn. And then 2 months later, we were living in Chicagoland at the time, and we'd been all over, hours away to find a child. And then all of a sudden, 45 minutes from our house, a little boy was born, and we named him Oliver Emmanuel, and he was just a couple days old when we met him and took him home that day from the hospital, and it was amazing. Manny's what we call him.
He's 7 years old,
He's
and
7.
a delight. I'll just tell you, they're in the green room and full of fun.
They are.
Full of fun, and the story didn't end there.
No, it did not. And our second adoption, Oakley, it wasn't as tumultuous to get there, but every adoption journey is different, and it had some ups and downs as well, and everyone has ups and downs. But it ended with Oakley, and he is amazing as well, and they get along really well. There's a picture of them we have that.
Oh, it's a fabulous family picture.
And so, yeah.
And Oakley's 4 now, and Emily was in the birthing room for his arrival.
She was in there with the birth mother, and I was in the hospital room just waiting, and so we got to meet him right when he was born. It was beautiful.
We've caught you here today on a family adventure. It's just so wonderful to share your joy. But who was God in the waiting room, Daniel?
We struggled. I struggled, she struggled, and you know, there are moments where you draw near to him, and there are moments where he just feels far. And I think the aftermath, we had a lot of emotions to sort through, and it took us a while. You know, it wasn't immediate. Emily noticed that I didn't really, in the first couple months, I tended to make myself more busy because we'd had so many adoptions fall through that I was afraid of connecting a bit with Manny in the first couple months. And so as I was kind of wrestling through the aftermath of what had occurred up until there, I was still connecting with him, and we, our family bond is amazing. We're just trying to enjoy the journey as our family motto.
I love your family values. I'm just going to throw out a couple of them. The journey is the destination.
Yeah.
These are the good old days.
Yes, yes. Personally, I tend to always be thinking about the future and think down the road and what's coming up and what do we not have yet or what are we supposed to be getting done. And those mottos kind of just help us relax a little. Paul said, godliness with contentment is great gain. And so for a few years, I've just been kind of letting that simmer in my heart and become a part of who we are as a family. And we only have the boys for 10, 15 years, and then they're off to college or off somewhere else they're supposed to be, But, so we only have them for a short amount of time, and we want to savor this and realize that these are the days that we're going to look back on, they're going to look back on, and we'd give $1 million just to spend one of these days over. So why not enjoy it and savor it in the moment now?
Fun to see the band is forming. Not the one we're going to be talking about in a minute, but your family band, the music is in them, and I watched on your phone that the all together is just too fun. Manny on the drums. I love that you know in your heart, and you tell anyone who will listen, this isn't plan B.
No, not at all. For our dreams it may have been, for what we wanted from the beginning, but then all of a sudden it's like, God takes our fake pearls and gives us real ones. When I see the picture of our family, it scares me to think that our dreams could have worked out, because I would have never met Manny and Oakley. And so I just, every day I look in their eyes and I see the grace and mercy of God for knowing what's best for us. And it doesn't always work out, though. It doesn't always work out. There are things in this world where we still are going to scratch our heads and wonder, God, what were you doing there? And we may not know until the age to come, until heaven. And so actually this song, Stained Glass Windows, I'm going to share, the bridge I added, because that is a reality. Because when I can't stop asking why, when I can't see the other side, he keeps loving us. When our faith still struggles, even though we see resolution, I see resolution every day in my boys' eyes. But there's some things I still don't get. But we can trust in him because he gives us the past and his faithfulness. We can trust him in the future.
Well, you may have guessed that this man puts those wonderful thoughts into music lyrics. And we're going to talk to the musician right after this.